this is Sophie Lawson from SophieLawson.com. Hello, this is Sophie Lawson from SophieLawson.com, and this is episode 221 of the Sophie Art Podcast. It's a little podcast that I do about the art in Tings, and it's a bit windy, but hopefully it'll be alright. And I think it's about to pee down. If it does, I'm going to keep going, because this is a walk and talk. I haven't got any apples today, but I'm going to get some apples on the way home, and I might put a crunch in a minute, because I likes the crunches. Yeah, it is raining. It's that drizzle rain as well. You know that rain that is like the wettest of rain. There's loads of people out here today, which is a bit weird. I thought it was actually going to be quite quiet. But this one here today, I'm talking about things break. Nothing lasts forever. Because I've had a couple of experiences this past week, which I think I've learnt a lot of lessons from. It's basically I broke my Kindle and I broke my camera whilst taking photos on two separate occasions, but I've actually had really good insights from them. So lilDENNiS is at home, and he's probably done the right thing there, because he would have got wet out here. I'll tell you what I love about rain. When you're out in the rain underneath the trees, I love the sound of the rain hitting the trees. It's cool. Could you imagine being in a rainforest? Imagine being in a rainforest with it hammering down. How cool would that be? This is cool, this is. Yeah, I knew it was going to do this. I wouldn't be surprised if we have thunderstorms in a minute, because it's so warm. But peeing it down as well. So, well, what am I've got. I'm going to talk about this weird thing as well, which is so in quantum physics, they say that, I think it's called the observer effect. But in the double slit experiment, they've observed, or the findings show, that the future can change the past. Shall we just listen to this rain for a bit? Isn't it beautiful? It is beautiful. I'd love to be in a rainforest with this going on. But in the double slit experiment, they've observed that basically particles are both waves and, well, was it something is both a wave and a particle or something? Basically, it's both in the position that they observe it at, but it's only there when they observe it. So, in other words, the future changes the past, because until they look at it in the future, but in the past it was in all the positions. So it's them in the future that changes its position in the past. Now I had a weird experience on, when was it? I think it was Thursday or Friday. What happened was I was out taking photos. Oh, and I'm also, if you're watching this on YouTube, and I'll put links and everything in the show notes, but if you're watching this as a video, I'm going to put some videos in of me posing down the woods and stuff. It was a beautiful sunny day though on that one. That was just before I broke my camera. But what happened was, on Friday I was taking photos and I was just about to walk home, and I put my Kindle, which I use to take photos, I put it into one of my, like a carrier bag, and normally I put it into my proper bag, my rucksack. Now what's weird is I looked at the Kindle in that bag, and I thought I should put that in my bag, really, my rucksack. But then something said, well, what I said was, I said, I'm only going to be walking home, I'm not doing anything else, so it would be alright there. And then what happened was, like, 5 minutes later, I realised I didn't put my socks on. I didn't have my socks on. So I put my bag down, sat on my bag to put my socks on, and I broke my Kindle. Because as I got up, I thought, hang on a minute, wasn't my Kindle in that bag? And so what happened was, in that moment, suddenly, that the experience I had before of looking at the Kindle in the bag, thinking I should put that in my proper bag, suddenly that became a lot more powerful. So what I'm wondering is it possible? Because what happened after that was, I spent about 5 minutes thinking, I wish I'd put that Kindle in my big bag. Why didn't I put it in my big bag? So I'm wondering whether, because there was such an emotion invested in that thought of wishing I had put it in the big bag, I'm wondering whether that emotion attached to that thought is what actually sent the thought back in time to the past version of me. So it was actually me in the future sending myself the thought, saying, you should put that Kindle in the big bag, but I didn't listen to it. So I'm wondering whether this is sort of how you can improve your intuition and stuff. Maybe it's you in the future talking to yourself in the past. So what would have happened is, if I had listened to that and acted on it, I would have actually changed the timelines. Because I would have had the Kindle in my big bag and I wouldn't have sat on it. So I wouldn't have broke it. So then, this is how I start wondering whether everything that's happening is like some sort of, it's all like alternate timelines. Because if you think about it, everything we're doing it's all decisions. Like just before doing this podcast, I had a decision. Do I go down the park and record it, or do I go over by the river? Now, if I had gone over by the river, I would have been soaking wet now. But because I come into the park, I've got trees. There's like shelter. But I've noticed this so many times where something will happen, and when I get that feeling of, I wish I had sort of done the other thing or something, I always get that feeling that the original thought is somehow from me. But it also makes you wonder, where do thoughts even come from? Thoughts are coming from somewhere. So a lot of thoughts are coming from the past. Let's say for instance somebody beats you up. Let's say you're walking along and somebody beats you up. Next time you walk along that same location, a thought might enter your head of, somebody might beat me up or something. But the only reason that's happened is because of a past experience. So I used to say that future experiences aren't actually putting thoughts in. What if that's not creating thoughts as well? And then you can go all over the place with this, because what if, for instance, somebody does something like let's say you're walking along the street and let's say you're driving a car or something and somebody cuts you up. If you sort of then send out this message of, I wish they didn't cut me up, what if that actually sends a thought into the other person's head in the past? So they get the thought of, they won't pull out in front of that person. Can you see what I mean? It ends up looking like a big, massive, entangled sort of thought thing, like a big web of thoughts, where all these thoughts are going in and out of people. So that was the first thing I thought. And then the other thing was, what this did was, it made me realise because I've had that Kindle for probably about 10 years or something, and what I do is I've got this app on it called Time Lapse, and what it does is it allows you to control your like digital camera like without having to do anything. So you can set it to every 5 seconds it will take a photo, and it goes on in like unlimited. So you could be there for half an hour, every 5 seconds it's taking a photo. So what you can do is you can set your tripod up with the camera on it, and you can like pose away, sort of posing for photos, and every 5 seconds you're getting a photo. So it's almost like you've got a virtual photographer with you. But I'd never thought to myself, well, this is a thing as well. This is what's weird. Two weeks ago, or a week before I went out, I did have a thought of, I've got to look after this. Did I say that? No, the thought was more, imagine if, that was it. The thought was, imagine if I couldn't use the app or something, because I didn't have a blackout pan. So even that thought, why did I think that? It's all very strange, but it's made me realise that I take a lot of things for granted, and I also feel like what happened with the what's it called? The vaccine thing, the COVID thingy, when everyone got put into lockdowns. I almost feel like that was also really good for making people realise how much they relied on stuff. Because all of a sudden, all this stuff was like stopped, all the shops shut and that. You suddenly realise, how much you sort of took stuff for granted. So I had that sort of experience as well with this when I broke my Kindle. Now what's funny about this is, I went out again yesterday, which was probably nearly a week later, and what I did was I had a little phone at home, an Android phone. I managed to get the app on that as well. So I've got a backup plan now, but I need to get my Kindle fixed. But what happened was I was posing away, and I was trying to change my outfit like in the middle of the woods, which is always a bit risky. And I was like rushing, and as I was like stretching to put the outfit on, I knocked the tripod with the digital camera on it, and it fell forwards and like broke, so it stopped working. Now what's cool is, both of these situations I didn't get angry, I didn't get upset, I just sort of, so what happens for me is, if something happens like that, I use it as a learning experience. I am upset and disappointed because it's going to cost you money to fix it, and it's a silly mistake, some of them. But the good thing is, I feel like you can learn everything that's happening, you can learn from. So straight away I was thinking to myself, right, how am I going to fix this? What am I going to do if I can't fix it? And stuff like that, because it's almost like I can't do anything about it now. So what happened was, I decided to go home because I didn't have a camera. So I go home, and I was sorting out because luckily the photos I took were, they were alright on the SD card. So what happened then was, about an hour later, I turned the camera back on at home, and it started working again. So now it seems to be working. So I took that as I remember listening to a podcast once about, it was a spiritual meditation podcast, meditation retreat. I can't remember who it was, but they were talking about how this bloke, he parked his car in a car park, like a multi-storey car park, and he went out to get into his car, and he realised somebody had nicked it. No, it was his bicycle actually, a motorbike. It was like a Harley Davidson, a really expensive motorbike. And what he said was, he said initially he was like, oh no, but then within about 2 minutes he was basically alright with it. He had sort of accepted that he had lost his motorbike, and in that moment, the moment he accepted he had lost his motorbike, he realised he was on the wrong floor. So he hadn't lost his motorbike. But what I'm thinking is, this almost goes into the same sort of thing. I sometimes think like stuff's happening as tests to see how you're going to respond. If he had responded like, getting his knickers in a twist, who's to say that actually he wouldn't have been on the wrong floor and he would have lost his bike? But it's almost like the universe said, you've proven to me that you're able to let go of your motorbike. In other words, you're not attached to your motorbike, therefore you can have it back again. It's almost, I really do think that's happening sometimes, because what happened was I had let go of the camera. I had accepted that I've lost that camera, and I got it back again. And also what's amazing is, because my mum said this as well, I feel like what happened was it was actually the universe's way of making me go home early. Because if that hadn't have happened, I would have been there all day, I think. And the thing is, well, I did need to get home to get some rest, because I've been going to sleep so late lately, because I've been doing lots of things. So I've been sacrificing sleep and stuff. So I almost feel like the message I got from that moment was, one was, you need to have a backup for if you break something like that. Also realised that I take the camera for granted. I also realised that I'm actually not attached to the camera. I am attached to it in one way, because I need it for photos, but I'm actually able to let go of it. So that was a nice bit. But also the main thing was this sort of connection I had with the universe. I ended up feeling like I was connecting with the universe there. And what's also amazing is, this location I went to was a new location. I'd never been there before. As soon as I got there to this place, what happened was there was a bench and like a beautiful curved tree trunk, which you could sort of sit on and stuff. It was up, and then right next to it were these steps, wooden steps leading right up to the top. So what you had the curviness of the tree alongside like the straights of the what's it called, the steps. It was just beautiful, it was. So I found this beautiful location. As I got there, little Robin was there, and Robin is my spirit animal. Now later on, about an hour later, I'm in the middle of taking photos, another little robin come up, and I feel like these robins are messengers from the universe. I feel like they're guiding me. That's what I think. So I'm wondering whether I've got a feeling something was going to happen there if I'd stayed there. Something that I probably wouldn't have liked or something. So that was quite nice. Now the other thing I was thinking about, because I've been thinking a lot about this, the other thing I thought about was my gender therapist. So in 2014 I started seeing a gender therapist, and I definitely took her for granted for a few years, and then I suddenly realised, I really realised, I meditated on this and felt it properly, like really sort of emotionally got into it and cried and everything, and I experienced her not being in my life anymore. And I would go into that meditation multiple times, and what would happen is, whenever I went to the sessions with her, I appreciated her way more, because I knew she wasn't going to be there forever. So I feel like that's a good practice to do. Have you ever done this? Sit on a sofa or something, next to someone you love or something, and look at them. You do it when they don't know you're looking at them, and just really think to yourself that they're going to die one day, or you're going to die one day. In other words, you physically won't be in the same. At some point, physically, they're not going to be there anymore. And if you really feel that, it's hell of an emotional. And the sort of love you feel is unbelievable. I would love to do that if I ever had negative thoughts. If I was angry with someone, I would love to be able to somehow go into that sort of meditation or that experience in the middle of an anger thing. Because I feel like that feeling you get when you really feel like that person is going to leave your life, I feel like that could diffuse any sort of negative thoughts or something you might have about them. That's what I think. So, but there's also maybe, so like now, I'm going to really appreciate my camera a lot more. The fact that it's working again, I'm incredibly grateful for it. And also I'm going to try and get another Kindle, because I like the good thing about having like a Kindle or something, or a tablet, is it's a bigger screen. So while you're taking photos, you can actually see the photo you're taking on the screen. So if you're using a mobile, it's a very little screen. And I was finding that a bit hard yesterday. It's good in one way because it allows you to sort of forget about what the image on the screen looks like and just sort of get into the photos, I suppose. But it is good sometimes to be able to see on the screen like the composition. So, but again, when I get that, I'm going to really be grateful for that as well. And I've got to start, basically the other thing I thought was, it made me think of a quote. There's a quote on my website, one of my affirmations, and it says, when you rush, you delay. And I really, really thought about that yesterday, because what was happening was when I was rushing to get into my outfit, and that's when I broke the camcorder, and I broke the camera. So if I hadn't been rushing, I wouldn't have broke the camera. So that was another thing I thought about, was when you rush, you delay. So there's loads of stuff happening, like loads of wisdom bombs coming out of this negative experience. And then the ultimate one I thought as well was, it doesn't really matter anyway, does it? Like, if everything breaks, you can always get another one, apart from a person, really. That's what I'm saying. I think people are like the only thing really that matters, because you can't replace people. You can replace everything else, but not people. Even though we're not really people, we're spiritual things. So even people are sort of indestructible as well. We just change into different forms. What's that? What else has I got here? In my notes I've put, yeah, look. What I put is, I put, that precious thing you're attached to will break or die. So in other words, everything is going to break. So if you, like, what I thought popped into my head right there, my sister bought me this bracelet. We both had exactly the same one, and it said on it, she believed she could, so she did. And we both had that, so it was like a sort of a bracelet of bonding us. Now about three months ago, I lost it, and I never found it again, and that was really upsetting, because that's a special one, that is. So even that, but again, when that happened, I was really upset for ages, and I was walking around town and everything, walking around all the shops trying to find it, because I thought I might find it. At some point, I was able to let it go, because I realised, hang on a minute, it doesn't really matter anyway. It's only a bracelet. You don't actually need it. You don't need a bracelet to have a bond. It's a bit like when people get married. I don't understand the point in getting married and stuff. Like, having a wedding ring and that. It doesn't matter, does it? Like, the bond is actually nothing to do with anything physical or stuff. The bond is like an inner thing. So that was another thing. I thought, this is cool. Like, and I've noticed that a lot. These bad things happen, they're actually really good for learning lessons. But I've put here, ultimately our bodies will break too. I feel like that is going to be the biggest attachment we've all got to let go of. I feel like it's going to be quite easy to let go of physical things. It's not easy, but it's relatively easy. People and animals, they're going to be quite hard to let go of. But I feel like our bodies are actually, I feel like our bodies is the ultimate test. And it comes right at the end. Are you attached to your body? I feel like that's what will actually keep you in either the lower realms of the spirit realm, the lower dimensions, or if reincarnation is what happens, I feel like that's what will actually keep you looping. And I feel like earthbound spirits, a lot of earthbound spirits are actually people who are attached to their bodies and stuff. That's why they do spirit possessions. They spirit possess people because they're actually so attached to having a physical body that they actually end up attaching themselves to other people's bodies. I think that's it for this though. So the main takeaway is, when you rush, you delay. Basically, like, everything that's happening is learning, and I'm convinced, I'm absolutely convinced, we are sending ourselves messages from the future into the past, which makes you wonder. Like all those times when something happens and you get a thought, I've got to turn down this way, and you turn down that way, and you bump into somebody who changes your life or something. You know, that might be you doing that. Or maybe it's, I don't know, because I sometimes wonder whether the higher self is actually you in the future that is fully evolved into your ultimate self. So you are actually your higher self, and what you're doing is you're actually like almost working backwards through time to create yourself. It goes into this other thing I've said before. The creator, like God, the creator's creations are creating the creator, which is a paradox. But it's a very similar thing to that, is that like God creates humans, the creator creates the creations. And then those creations are actually creating the God. So I've always seen that as like a circular thing. But it might actually be to do with time as well. We might actually end up becoming God. But we are already God in the future, like, and what we're doing is we're going backwards in time, and we're just sort of changing it's free will. Because you start wondering about free will. If this is what's going on, if you in the future can send messages to yourself in the past, but this is it, isn't it? You've still got free will. That's the thing. So even you could send a message into the past, a powerful message, but yourself in the past still has free will to not do it. It's hell of a cool. I love this. But what you end up with is I was going to say a shit ton of timelines. You end up with like loads of versions of yourself. And I just thought to myself then, this might be the dream realm as well. It might be when you're in the sleep state, you're actually bouncing around these different timelines. So in other words, if you make a decision in the past and you change the timeline, the other timeline still has to exist. But you're just not on it now. But you might be able to go into it in the dream state. Because I think what happens there is if you go onto your sort of higher timeline, I think it's almost like all that's happening really is your consciousness is shifting around the different timelines. So maybe what happens is when you shift your consciousness onto the other timeline, the other versions of yourself become probability-based beings. So at that point, it's almost like they are basically like AI robots. And what they're doing is they're you, but they're not making decisions really. Well, they are making decisions, but they're making decisions based off of your probability. But what happens is they continue to exist because if your consciousness might end up making another decision which puts it back onto that other timeline. It's a little weird. I wish you could see the state of my paper with my notes on. It's like soaking wet, it is. But for this, all that's left is this week's inspirational quote. Nothing lasts forever, I put. That would be a nice quote. But what I've got is at home, I've got these things called chakra wisdom cards. So what I did was I pulled one out this morning, and I thought I'd use that as this week's inspirational quote. So I'm going to read this one, and it's actually called, it's the 6th chakra, third eye chakra, mindfulness. And the quote is a big one, but I'll get a little bit of it in a minute. So the quote is, I am aware of my thoughts and I ask myself, are they uplifting and are they true? I do this because I know that my thoughts significantly affect my mental, emotional and physical health. And because I know that my body believes everything that I believe. That's what I'm saying. This is how powerful thoughts are. So this is why I think thoughts is what it's all about. Because I've actually thought to myself, spirit possession, I feel like spirit possession is actually all around thoughts. There's some little common folk out here, the pigeons. You ever seen those seagulls when they're dancing? When it's been raining, you see them dancing on the grass for worms. It's funny, that is. I love pigeons. I feel like pigeons are sort of, I don't think they ask for much in life. They're sort of like, they're just absolutely happy with like what they've got. So I feel like spirits, the way spirits possess you, this is what I think, is with thoughts. Hey, there's sprinklers going on over here. There's a bowling green. That's funny. It's peeing down with rain and they got sprinklers on. You'd have thought they would have turned those off by now. That's quite... Hey, they've just turned them off. How weird is that? Look, he's just turned them off. The bloke over there, he just turned them off. That's quite weird, isn't it? I think what spirits do is... I think what's happening is we've got emotional wounds and the spirits can see these emotional wounds. Dan, on the Ascend podcast, he reckons that it's all to do with colours. It's almost like emotions are different colours, which could actually correspond with chakras and stuff. But he thinks what happens is these spirits can actually see emotional wounds in your body because they see your body they see your energy body as colours. So if, for instance, the spirit is attached to a physical body, let's say it's attached to playing video games, that could be, say, a colour of purple. So what it does is it looks for humans with like a purple body or a purple light in their body, and what it does is it can attach to that purple light. And that's how it gets inside and possesses. That's how it creates like an addiction. So what happens is you end up with an addiction to video games. But it's a spirit possessing you because the spirit wants to play video games. It's that sort of thing. But I think the way it works is if it sees that if it sees your body has like the frequency that it needs to attach to you, to possess you, I think what it does is it sends you a thought. So it will like send you a thought of playing a video game. Because it knows that you're going to respond to that thought. So it's like it's using thoughts. Thoughts are the way that the spirits can attach to you. Because what happens is you think these thoughts are yours, but they're not. So because you think they're your thoughts, you sort of act on them. If somebody else come up to you and said like the thing, if somebody come up to you and said some of the things that your thoughts are saying, you wouldn't listen to it. But because it's inside of your head, you think it's you. So that's why you listen to it. It's very clever. But it's also, this is why it's quite hard to sort of work it all out. Because, like, I've thought this a lot. If you hear someone else's thought, if I could go into your head and hear your thoughts, would it sound like me? Because what do my thoughts really sound like? It sounds like me, I think. But it's weird, isn't it? So I'm wondering whether actually, like, we're all... this is no. I said this to my mum the other day. If I could go into my mum's body, or if I could go into someone else's body, if you could go into anyone's body, or if you could even go into, say, a little ant, or some sort of creature, would you still feel like you? Would you feel like you, but you'd have these little legs of a creature? It's very much like a dream again. If you go into a lucid dream, and I've had a dream where I've become a cat, and I had a dream where I become a bird flying through the sky, but I still felt like me. So it was like it was me as a bird, which is quite weird. So I'm wondering whether everything actually feels like me. Does it feel any different to be anyone else? And therefore, everyone's thoughts might be the same. That's what I think. I think sometimes like Wi-Fi, it's invisible, but it's all around us. I'm wondering whether thoughts are like that. We're walking around. What if we're walking around through everyone's thoughts? And then you start wondering whether... What was I going to say then? I've totally lost what I was going to say then. Wandering around people... Oh, I don't know what I was going to say there. I got distracted by the little birds. There's little birds flying around, hopping about. They do not look like dinosaurs. Yeah, so I wonder whether... Oh, that was it. I think this might be why when you get into nature, you feel more connected and stuff. Because in nature, there's not as many thoughts flying about, because there's not as many people. So maybe and what's weird about this is I just thought about something. This is very much like the video game Persona. In Persona, very often what they will do is they'll have all the characters walking around and all the thought bubbles will be in the air. But they're like all their thoughts are written. That's what I'm thinking. What if somehow you could... I reckon if you could... Because I wonder if there's a way to be able to scientifically view Wi-Fi. In other words, does Wi-Fi have a light to it? So could you actually, if you had a certain camera or something, like infrared or something, if you could have a certain camera, do you think you'd be able to see the Wi-Fi all around us? And then I wonder whether you could do that with thoughts. And that might be what spirits are doing. Maybe when you're in the spirit realm, you might be able to have an ability to see thoughts. Because all thoughts is energy. Let's get back to this quote though. It says, "I am not in control of all situations that come my way, nor am I in control what others do and say. However, I do have free will as to how I respond." Why I like that was it reminded me of the experience the other day when my camera broke. I'm not in control of all situations. I'm not in control of how the camera fell on the floor and broke. I was in control of how it was ultimately me that pushed it over, I suppose. But I'm not in control of the rain falling this morning, but I am in control of how I respond. So I responded by going under the trees. There's a doggy over there. I'll tell you what, the way dogs run about, you can really see a sense of freedom in doggies. It's cool. And it says down the last bit of this quote is, "I choose to respond to all situations from an enlightened position rather than just reacting." I think that's going to be this week's inspirational quote. We've got a red rose. Red, red rose. And we've got little yellow yellow things. Do you touch leaves and stuff? Because what you start realising is, like this, I've got a leaf here, it's really furry, feels like stubble. It's quite amazing actually. And then some of them, like this one, I've got another one here, it's waxy. So it's quite interesting how all leaves are not the same. Some are furry, some are waxy. This one here has got a texture to it, so it's got like grooves on it. I feel like it's quite important because you can sort of, when you're doing a painting or something, you can sort of put in a bit of texture and stuff. Or the furries. This week's inspirational quote. A little raindrop fell on the oh, this is cool. This rose here has got a bit of pink stuff on it. This week's inspirational quote is going to be, I choose to respond to all situations from an enlightened position rather than just reacting.